Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
Hey, this is Tyler Jones, and you're listening to the Element Podcast. What's happening, all my woods people? Today, sitting in a truck again, no motor running, so that's a good thing. We can really focus. But yeah, we unfortunately, like, our office is this truck. It's
yes.
Like where we do things. Mm-hmm. Now my phone's ringing. People be calling me like crazy, wanting to know if I'm showing up for Christmas. I was talking just a second ago. The intro to this podcast, I always have like a channel like my inner radio voice for the intro. For some reason, it's something that I learned when we were on radio tour when I was, during the band thing. And we would go, well, I remember one time we hit like 6 stations in one day. We started in Lubbock, Texas, went up through Amarillo area, east through Elk City, Oklahoma, and all the way down to basically an hour north of here. It's like Hugo area. Mm-hmm. Like, when we hit 6 stations in between. It was the most marathon day thing I've probably ever done. That's a tough day. And but anyway, like we would be talking to these DJs and stuff, before we got on air, and they introduce themselves, learning a few things about us. Most of them didn't do their homework, or listen to anything that our promoter sent them, or read anything, of course. So they didn't know much, and we'd talk to them. They had like this normal person voice, whatever. And then they'd be like, all right, we're going on in 30 seconds. And we're like, okay, cool. And then music would play out into the song, and it'd be like, hey, 93.1 KGHL, it's like, whoa, what happened to this dude's voice? And so if you think that I sound weird in the intro, I'm sorry, but that's just something I learned, and I just have to channel that inner radio person. Who do you think
did that first? You think like Casey Kasem like laid the groundwork for that, or like,
I don't know, man.
Why is there such a thing as a radio voice?
Yeah, I don't know. It's I would think that whether most people know it or not that are DJs, maybe like there's something in making your voice that way that like is really flat and like doesn't affect the EQs and the sound waves and stuff as much. I don't know. Maybe that's kind of
or it grabs people's attention in a different way, psychologically, that we don't quite understand.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just like this habit that I started with the podcast for some reason. But now I've got my normal voice on, and we're chilling here late in the week.
It is late in the week. If y'all are expecting a Thursday release, we are very sorry. But you know what? It is the Christmas time of year.
It is. And somebody got a new muffler.
I know. He had to show it off. Things just don't happen on a good schedule this time of year, man. It's just the way it goes, including our ability to fill tags. It doesn't happen on schedule. Yeah.
Our ability to think doesn't happen on schedule.
Oh, man. I was talking to you the other day about it. I was like, dude, I don't know why, but I can't formulate words right now. And you're like, it's because you're tired, man. We've been through 4 months of hunting season if you include elk season, So a lot of getting up at 3:30s and going to bed late and doing all this. A lot of duplex cookies.
Dude,
Oh,
those duplex make me think 100 miles an hour.
oh man,
They make me think how good they are.
yeah.
Yeah, it has been tough, and we have struggled this week, like I was saying, with the thinking thing. You know, like our mental efforts have been focused in a lot of areas, and we've been thinking, you know, about all these things, and we just couldn't come up with like a great idea for a podcast. This time of year, it's hard to get good guests because, you know, they're hunting too, and they're tired too, you know. So
and not to mention it's family season, man.
exactly, yeah. And so, you know, that's another place that our mental focus has been, is on family and Christmas, and got to get presents, and you got to make the last couple $100 before Christmas happens so you can feel decent coming out of Christmas, and clean your house and all these different things, man, that just kind of hit you this time of year. And we thought, OKC, you know, texted me this morning and was like, and I'm just like, at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm to the point that I'm like thinking maybe we should just get on the podcast and be like, hey guys, we'll see y'all in 2019. You know, like, I'm sorry, but you know, we're just not doing it right now. And you told me, you know, hey, what if we did, you know, basically just outline the struggles we've had lately, and talk about, you know, kind of work our way through this. You said it more poignantly than I can.
Yeah.
Right
So, well, this is just kind of the thoughts I've had. It's like, why put up a facade when, like, there's a real thing going on in our lives right now, and that is the fact that we're family men, and family means a lot to us. So Christmas means a lot to me. It means a lot to you, and spending time with family is very important. But we also really love to hunt, and those two things really collide in the holiday season. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, even, like, all of these things. It makes it real tough to be able to do both. And there's a lot of different aspects to it. Whether that's like scheduling or maintaining a happy family, or just, like, quite honestly, communicating with normal people.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest struggles, is going to Christmas and actually finding something to talk to
people that
about.
don't hunt and trying to figure out how to talk to them. Yeah,
exactly.
It's like, well, I don't know a lot about anything but hunting, and you don't know anything about hunting, and a lot about other things. So sorry. Yeah. Does anybody else's wife just love New Year's Eve? Like, think that's like the coolest thing. Like, we should be making out underneath the you know,
mine,
12 o'clock
I
hour.
forgot about that, but mine did that, especially when we were dating. She was like, I wish you were here. I could kiss you on New Year's Eve. I was like, I don't know that. It's not a thing.
It's not a thing to me. Like, what is? And I'm not a guy that, like, I like to make goals for the year.
When
Like,
you said make, I thought you'd be like, I'd like to make out.
I love making out, you know, all the time, not just on New Year's Eve. But I do like to make goals to kind of like give myself something to shoot for by the end of the year. But I'm not a guy that does like a resolution where I'm like, ooh, I'm not going to eat carb for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
You know, for the whole year.
There was a point in my life where I was an aspiring bodybuilder, and that didn't go very far. But I worked on it for
3 months.
I worked on it for a long time. I
know.
don't have the genes to do it without outside assistance, and I didn't want to do that.
Like
like the needle stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, well, oh, no, I was
Extra
talking about jeans. I didn't know.
No.
Like, there's some workout jeans that help you out.
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't want the extra T there. But
genetics.
yeah, I couldn't do it straight jeans. Anyways, It used to perturb me so bad because, like, I was a gym rat. And then, like, for about 2 months in January and February, the gym was so stinking busy.
Oh, yeah.
And then around March, it got better again.
Yeah.
Every year.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I've never been a resolution kind of guy either, because I'm like, listen, I'm not going to wait till the beginning of a year to, like, make a change in my life. If I see a change needs to be made, I'm going to do it right now.
That's right. That's how I feel about it, dude. It's like it doesn't just happen all of a sudden at the end of the year, you know?
Yeah.
What about Ronnie Coleman, bro?
Dude, Ronnie Coleman.
He was a no steroid guy, right?
I don't know about that.
I don't either.
I don't
like,
think
it doesn't
so.
look like it, but
Nah.
he like swears that he's not.
I don't know, dude.
I don't know either. How do you get that big?
Well,
you
if he says no steroid, there's still quite a few other things you can take.
yeah, it's like just we're not injecting, right?
Yeah.
We're just doing all kinds of eating other things.
HGH and
Yeah.
all that stuff. But
Eating some
anyways.
deer velvet and stuff.
Yeah, which maybe that's where we need to get into, is a little bit more of that deer velvet stuff.
Yeah. So, you know, like lately, our struggles have been, I don't know, they're kind of like, I guess the least, or the maybe something that like bothers me the most as far as my struggles go, but is also like probably one of the least important, has been like getting in front of or close to big deer.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, we've been close to them, I guess, in November. We're all real close to them, but December's been tough, man.
It has, man. You know, I was thinking about this yesterday and some today, too. I've talked a lot about, like, throughout my life, how we have kind of a trickle rut in our area of Texas. And this year, I think I've seen the most consistent, like, peak rut action and then a huge drop-off that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Ever seen in my hunting career. And it's not a bad thing.
What's that from?
I would think it has something to do with more balanced herd, with having cooler temperatures in November than we did in December.
I was going to ask if you thought the weather was a factor.
I think it's a mixture of both. I think it's a mixture of just a fluke kind of year, and then also like things are getting better around here with herd dynamics because of having some extra doe days, and maybe the antler restrictions are helping that a little bit too, or whatever. But that's a podcast for another time, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I think that's like not to like brush it away from myself and blame it on something else, but I think that has made our year more difficult.
Yeah.
Because I normally can kind of bet on like hunting around my birthday, which is mid-December, being pretty good, and it has dried up.
Man, and like every year locally, you hear people all the time, there ain't no bucks, they're just not moving or whatever. And I think that most of the time that just happens to be where you're at, or guys may be hunting no matter what the wind is, or whatever. And by December, it's like you've blown that deer out in the woods before you ever saw him or he ever saw you, like 6 times already. So, but I have heard from several people that like they're not seeing hardly anything on cameras, and I know we've had some struggles. Like December 4th, I think, we went out to the pub in Texas and had a great hunt, and we noticed that there was like no pressure in here, right? Human pressure. And so we were like, man, this is going to be good. We're going to go back and do this thing. So I go to Kansas, and we did an episode on that. You guys know that was a successful trip. Come back, and we go back out there, and man, it's pretty chilly, and it was a rough hunt, man. We almost didn't see any deer. If we hadn't have been paying good attention, we would have likely gotten snuck by, because we had a deer come by that just like completely covered by trees for almost the entirety of this like 5 minutes that was in our view, I guess you could say. So that, along with like we've been pulling some trail cameras lately, and it's poor, man. Like you had a bad one at your property,
which was so crazy because, and given I've minimal as it is, I've put more pressure on that place than it's used to, because it's used to zero, right? And I've been in there throwing out some corn and putting a camera out or whatever, but that's like once a week, and you'd think that it wouldn't have that drastic of an effect, but for the first 2 card pulls, it was great. And then this last time, it was like not a deer in daylight.
Yeah. Our pub camera is the same way. We've pulled some cameras that are absolutely horrid. Just terrible. So it's been a struggle. And so, like, I'm looking at the rest of this year, like, I don't have the one big issue that I think we have is that we don't have we don't have any access to hunt near major food sources really too much. And I think that's an issue this time of year. And I think that big issue for me is I don't have any meat. So I'm trying to figure out, like, I really would love to kill like another buck. I've hunted really hard here in Texas and haven't had really hardly any encounters. And, that would be nice. I've got these options that are all like up in the air right now that I'm trying to figure out. And so, like, for instance, this Walmart property, which is my permission property, I thought, well, maybe if I start feeding out there again, I had stopped. Maybe if I start feeding out there again, we will see some deer start showing up, and maybe we get a cold day and they show up a little bit before dark, right? Yeah. I'm struggling to see any does out there, and nothing in the daylight yet on camera. So, and it hadn't been out that long, but that's not really a great option for me. the Texas pub game is just like, we've had so many just like people. I don't know why, but they're like all these spots we've been hunting for the last couple of years that have been pretty out of the way and nobody's hunting there. All of a sudden, like we got people hunting. We've lost over half of our spots to just human pressure this year.
Yeah.
Probably.
I guess you could go hunt them, but man, I just don't. That's not the experience I'm looking for. Trying to hunt around somebody.
I'm not either, and I'm telling you right now, the deer here don't like being around those people either.
No.
So it's tough, and then I still have a doe tag in Kansas, but that's a long ways to go for a doe. I know it's a big old Midwestern doe, but
and we'd like to go do that together, but I have vehicle woes, which means that Kansas is all but done for me this year unless just something fluky happens and I find some kind of way, which I'm still going to try to make it happen. But this time of year is family time, like we talked about, and Christmas is coming, and then y'all have a family trip right after Christmas, right? And that's just kind of going to really impede some of that. And it's not that you shouldn't go on that, or it's not that you should.
I didn't want to. I asked them. I was like, "Hey, can we not do this until after until January?"
Yeah.
And of course, the teachers in my family, we gotta go back to school.
Yeah.
Good grief! Come on. Anyway.
Yeah, but that's part of the struggle, man. Is that when we do what we do and we are sold out to this hunting lifestyle, we're different than a lot of people, right? A lot of our friends even that really love to hunt, they're weekenders, right? And go out, hunt their spot, might have a couple stands or something for different wind directions, and that's cool, and if they get what they want out of it, that's great. But for us, it makes it real tough whenever you start throwing in these extra trips, extra days. Like, for instance, tomorrow I have a family Christmas on December 22nd. I'm like, I love you guys, and let's do this, but can we not just bump it back a couple hours? Like, why has it got to start at 5:30?
Right.
And it's just the fact that a lot of people don't quite understand that. Don't understand, like, the hunter's schedule,
Yeah, that they definitely, I don't know. I don't know that my family, because I've traveled so much, I don't think my family ever thinks about me and my schedule.
They just assume you're going to have to give something up.
We're just going to do it, and you're going to either give it up or you're going to be gone or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, like, when I was playing in a band, I had something booked for, like, months. I kind of had to go on that, right? Well, now it's like, oh, well, it's just a hunt around here, like, you can miss it, whatever. And I can, and I do. I mean, I guess my other option is I've got a buddy, or my dad. It's really my dad's buddy, but I've known him a long time, and he's got a place that's in Texas. It's like 5 hours from here, and I could go out there and pretty easily schlock a couple of does with a rifle, and like that would be a great meat haul. That would be a great way to get my meat, but it's kind of like, do I want to do that? And I probably will. To be honest with you. But I'm just thinking about all these options, and I'm like, where should I go? What should I do? What's open? Should I go buy another license in another state and try to hunt a later season or what? So it's just, I don't know. And it's not. I sound like I'm kind of whining about it. It's more just the options. It's like going into some restaurant that's got a million things on the menu, and you're like, what should I do?
Dude, have you ever been to those taquerias that have like
89
90 things on?
Yeah, 90 different
I guess it's
options.
90, yeah.
Whatever it might be, yeah. I mean, it's like in the upper 80s plus.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like, what am I supposed to get here?
Well, I hate the fact that it's like, man, I want to eat it all, and you got 90 things. I ain't got enough eat-outs in my life to come in here and get it all.
That's right, dude. I know. So, there's definitely things that are tough in the holidays, and there are things that are good. Like, to be honest with you, something that I see is like being beneficial for me or good maybe about this holiday season is just the opportunity. Like, I need a break, man. I need a break from like all the editing, the podcasting, and even like the hunting, just to like reset. And then that way, I think, like, I don't know. I need to get, because I'm just like, I mean, seriously, if you guys could see what I do, when I'm not hunting, it's basically just sit behind a computer screen, and I'm not the kind of guy that's like just a computer nerd. I like to be outside. I always worked outside growing up. I played outside. It's always been my thing. But to kind of keep things going, keep you guys satiated with video content and seeing what we're doing. Like I have to spend a lot of time behind this computer, and so my wife told me yesterday that there's this thing called rest, and most people do it, and that I should try it. And so she's right. I don't rest very well, and I think that like it'll benefit me because once like I finish this holiday season and then that trip and everything, I'll be ready to finish out the season like very strong, much better mentally. I'll be in a much better spot mentally with my hunting, my life, and like any other stressful things that are bugging me right now. And just, I think it'll be a refresher to just hit that last week or two of deer season and then, into fishing season for me, really. I'm like already ready for it.
You got your fishing shirt on today.
I do. Cool stuff.
It feels like fishing weather out there right now.
Yeah.
For me, one of the things that I do look forward to, it's almost like, maybe not look forward to, but something I need is to realize that, yes, like taking an animal is life or death, but like getting to hunt a lot isn't life or death. And it feels like it to me because I love it so much.
Yeah.
But, you go to Christmas and you get to be around people and you get to see people you don't get to see very often. So, like, you really like them a lot and you don't have to spend too much time around them because then you wouldn't like them anymore. But,
yeah.
That part of family is nice, man, and that part of the holidays is nice because I like how there's like this pretense of kindness that is associated with Christmas. Like for most folks, when you get together with people during the holidays, like you want it to go well. So everybody's really nice to each other. Everybody hangs out and
well, even people like around town. Like I was telling you about the grumpy guy I was going to have to deal with the other day.
Yeah. Was he good?
He was okay.
That's good.
He was okay. And then at the end I said Merry Christmas. He even said Merry Christmas to me.
Right,
but
dude.
It was not very happy Merry Christmas. But he did say it.
He wished it to you either way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're right about that. I think that as far as like keeping that happy family, amongst your immediate family, like during this holiday season, there are some different thoughts on how to do this, and like I have some stuff that I've kind of developed in thinking about this today since you kind of posed this podcast, and like I kind of alluded to just a second ago, my dynamic is different than most. I really struggle with being off of work. So like my kids may come home after school and I'll finish up what I'm doing, which may take 20 minutes, and then I'll play with them a little bit, and then it's like dinner, get to bed, and then get them in bed hopefully by 8:30ish, and then it's like back to the computer screen. It's the computer screen until I go to sleep, which whatever time that may be, it just depends on how I feel and what I got to do the next morning or whatever, and like where I'm at in the editing process or whatever. So like, I think that most people that are like employees out there, they may have like a much easier time shutting it down after work and just being like the partner or the spouse or the parent that they should be in the evenings. And for me, I'm having to like set myself up days in advance to mentally take a break from work for this holiday season so that like I can be with my family in every aspect, mentally, physically, everything. So I think that if that is you, and I think even if you are an employee that has a more 9 to 5-ish kind of thing, setting yourself up mentally can pay off in an exponential amount of ways during the holidays.
Yeah,
for you.
I have to talk to my wife about that because she does a job that she absolutely loves. So she will work from the time her eyes open till they close. And I'm like, as much as she loves it, it still stresses her, right? Because there's still stressful aspects, especially what she does. And that's something that she has a hard time with, is like realizing like, hey, sometimes it's time to just completely unwind. I don't have that problem. I have the problem of, like, I'll go to work, but I'll start daydreaming and then, like, just like, oh, I need to look up this oak tree on my phone right quick. You know, like, that's my issue. But something that I have noticed for me is that communication and scheduling is a big deal and something that I have to work on during this time of year. Because for me, I'm my only child, so I'm used to, like, having my own schedule forever and always. And this has been like a big it sounds so, like, easy, but it's not. Like, whenever you get married, that's not how it works anymore, right? Like, especially once you start having kids, which I'm not there yet, but I'm sure that you have experience with this. Like, there's a whole bunch of schedules that you have to adhere to that aren't of your own. And for a long time, I fought it. And I was like, no. And for, like, the first, couple years, Cassie and I were dating. And then once we got married, I was, like, late to Thanksgiving and stuff because I was hunting. And her family's a hunting family, which you'd think they'd kind of understand. And they never said much to me or anything about it. But I was like, instead of fighting it, what I need to start doing is just going along with this, spending time as a family, but make sure I do a better job of conveying how much time in the outdoors means to me, so that one day, instead of, like, rescheduling for me because they're like, well, Casey's going to be late, people will be like, oh, I know that he loves this much. Like, let's not, let's make sure we can find a time we can all do something.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's a different way of, like, changing people's minds on that as opposed to, like, just fighting about stuff.
And you're kind of hitting on something here that was my kind of, like, final thought about this whole, like, maintaining a happy family during the holidays, and still, hunting as well. My wife and I talked about this on our date the other night, which happens about every 3 months or so. But I know for a fact that the majority of our listeners are men because of analytics, and so we can see that. And you and I are. So I'm going to speak to this because I have experience with this, but we were talking about this the other night, and there are just not many men that, like, take deep thinking and conversation very seriously. And give me a second to kind of come around to this. This is kind of hippie. This isn't the most manly man of things or whatever to talk about, but I have some thoughts about it. And in my opinion, embracing emotions that aren't just like the primal, like, oh, I'm going to crush you in football or UFC kind of thing, like embracing different emotions that are not just rage emotions, are important to, as a male. And, further, like, having at least one male in your life that you can discuss these emotions and the other things, like the whys of life, like, why am I here? What am I doing? Why is this why does this happen to me? Whatever it may be, but these big questions that are deep, that's extremely important, I feel like. And the reason that I think this is important is because these deep thoughts kind of allow you to love more deeply. And when you can do that, that day or the few hours you get to spend with your family on the holidays, it's better spent. Your family and friends kind of understand better how you feel about them. You know what I mean? And so will you. You'll understand, like, what it means to you to be there and to spend time with them, what they mean to you as well. And, in my experience, when I kind of practice this, which I have been doing a lot better at the last couple of years, my wife doesn't really miss me any differently when I'm gone. She still misses me a lot, maybe even more, because of how good our relationship is going or whatever, but, when I'm gone, because of the better time that we spent together, she knows with little or no doubt, like, what she means to me truly. And it makes my trip easier when I go out. There's few calls. I don't get bothered all the time. Lots of patience, understanding on her end, and it just makes my life easier. And this is not something that I'm saying to do because of this selfish, like, I want to go on trips and they'll understand this. It's a big circle of things. It's like, because you loved me, I love you kind of thing. And I hope, are you kind of understand what I'm saying?
No, I get it.
I sometimes can't get out what I'm trying to say, like, exactly.
Improve everyone's life. Right? That's the idea, because...
Well, you're a leader. As a man in a relationship, you're called to be a leader, right? So
yes, exactly. And a lot of times, like something that I've had to work out, like being a newlywed, is like being mentally there, which is kind of like what you were talking about with the like not ever stopping working, right? If you're mentally there for your wife or your family, like at one of these events, you'll get more time to do what you want to do outside of that too. And if you go to like family Christmas, but like the whole time you're kind of in the corner thinking about like what you'd rather be doing or whatever, that doesn't count towards the family time.
Yeah, it's not. It's very.
You're not
very
satisfying like the wants and needs of your family. Specifically, we're going to talk about wives because that's a big part of big thing to us, and then you kids as well. But if you're not satisfying it even while you're there, it's like you're wasting your time, and you might as well not be there.
Exactly.
So
right.
while you're there, be sold out for whatever you're doing.
Which is not hard for men to do. We did this study in our Wednesday night church class. It's been a couple of years, but it was we read a book called I believe it's called "Men Are Like Waffles, Women Are Like Spaghetti," and it sounds real corny or whatever.
It does, but I believe you.
No, it's really good because the reason it says that, the main thought of this whole book is that women, being like spaghetti, can travel in and out of conversation and thought just fluidly. And how hard is it to follow a woman sometimes when she's talking? You know what I mean? For us, right? But they can just be talking about something, and next thing you know, they're mad about something else, and they were happy just a second ago. And you're like, what just happened? Yeah. And for guys, the waffle aspect is that a waffle has all these different boxes where all the syrup go. You know what I mean? And a guy has to be in a box, and then he has to jump out and like close that box and get into another one as far as thoughts go. Yeah. And so like, and I'm sure you can relate, but I know it hit me like a ton of bricks when I heard this, because I was like, man, I understand that completely, because I was doing a lot of wedding editing at the time, which I call wedditing. And I was watching Jet for that year. And so like I would be editing this wedding, and I would be in this part, and I really have to focus, and I'm looking at these like literally like frame by frame, and then Jet would come up and be like, I'm hungry. And I'm like, okay, well, I got to get up and feed him. It's like 1 o'clock. He hasn't eaten much, whatever. And when I got back to my computer, completely lost at where I was even at. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Just, I had to go from one box to the other and then back in. And so, I guess my point is to what you are saying is that it's easier just to go ahead and say, look, I'm going to be in this box with you today at this family Christmas, and not worry about, if there's downtime, whatever, jump on and look at a map or whatever if you want. But, like if you're talking, and try to be involved in that as well with your family and stuff. But yeah, I mean, be in that box, and then the next time you go to be in the hunting box, you won't be getting distracted as much about all these other things that your wife wants you to do.
If you satisfy the needs at home, then when you're away from home, it's not like you were saying earlier, you're not getting bombarded by calls or like, hey, did you do this? Or like, I missed you because I didn't get it. Like you weren't fully here the last time you were at home. Yeah. Yep. That box thing's interesting because this is stuff I had to communicate with my wife, because I don't understand women. She doesn't understand men. We haven't been married for a real long time. Like if we have a disagreement or an argument and it gets pretty heated, within about 5 minutes after we've resolved it, she's ready to like hug and like, just go back to being happy. And it's not that I'm still mad at her, but it's going to take me a little while to readjust where I'm at mentally. And that's something that like we've had to deal with a few times, because I'm just like, I'm not mad at you, but I'm not happy-go-lucky yet. It's going to take me a second to get there. Yeah. And I think that maybe we need to realize that when we're headed to some of these family events and stuff, and not like this is kind of just like the example, but like not be looking at trail camera pictures until you get out of the car to go, to family Christmas. But like mentally prepare yourself to be sold out. Like try to start making that transition. That way there's not like this huge warm-up period where people are like, what's wrong with this guy? Or like he's sold up because he's not hunting right now. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Dude, it's and it's funny to me, and I almost want to do a whole podcast on this, but like hunters talk about discipline so much. but it's like they don't. A lot of times, I know a lot of guys that talk about discipline, being a disciplined hunter, and sitting all day and this and that, and then don't have discipline like any other part of their life. You know what I mean? And so, I think this is one of those times when it's like, if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I'm a disciplined hunter and I'm trying to be a better one every day. Well, that should be just what you are. You should just be a disciplined person, right?
Yeah.
And so being that disciplined person is setting the phone down 30 minutes prior to showing up and having some conversation with your wife and preparing yourself to meet the weird uncle, you know what I mean? Or whatever it might be.
The so-called normal people, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, like, speaking of those normal people, you know, there's these normal people, what we're referring to are people that don't hunt, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the majority of the
Or
population.
at least they might even hunt, but they
don't like
might
it
not
as much.
see it the same way you do, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So, this is, okay, I remember you and I hadn't known each other that long. We had known each other a while, I guess, but it was one of the first times we saw each other at Sidekicks after church.
Yes.
Yeah, so you were like, you came up and like, we you know, like my family's there. You didn't know them that well. I didn't know your family that well. And so we were just like, you know, we wanted to kind of introduce each other.
I was actually working on your house at this point too.
Yeah.
So like we spend like 8 hours a day together talking all day.
Yeah. And so like you come up and we just kind of stand there and don't really say a whole lot. And I think you texted me like after we left Sidekicks and you're like, sorry, dude, I don't know how to be normal.
That's right. That's right, man.
So I can't have a conversation
if we're
about hunter fishing.
not scheming about like how to kill that big buck. It's like, what are we supposed to talk about? You know, how's the weather? Well, we both were outside. We don't need to talk about that.
No,
we know what it's like out there.
We know. Yep.
Yeah.
So the normal people are the people that don't just talk about hunting all the time like this, I guess. You know, like there's I think that this is something that probably it seems like has weighed on you a little bit, and that it's something that you really wanted to hit on. I have a lot of thoughts about like ways to talk to normal people, and I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is more stuff that like I need to work on, you know, and that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it, because a lot of times, which this isn't a bad thing either, but like at family gatherings, I just find myself playing with the kids because like we can talk about anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I just kind of really like abhor the idea of having to sit and talk to someone about their adult gaming system or something, you know? And it's just like, man, how do we communicate?
Yeah.
But I just think that a lot of times instead of, you know, being, you know, a little bit sold up, or is that something that everybody uses the word sold up? Do you know what that means?
I think I know what it means. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's more of a Southern thing.
Is it? Okay, so it's
I don't know for sure.
like being a touch pouty, maybe?
Yeah.
Pouting in the corner kind of thing. Instead of doing that, like finding some common ground to talk to people, because no matter who you are or what you do, most people have something they're passionate about. And I think if I can find someone who is passionate about something, we can like have a little common ground just on having passions, if that makes sense. You know, and we don't have to like sit there and talk about hunting and strategy, but like if we can both have a conversation about what we really enjoy about life, then we can have a good time and connect on a deeper level as a family, as opposed to just like, I don't know, sitting around talking about when we were kids and how I hit them in the head with a stick one time or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which that's fun to talk about too.
Yeah. Well, I think that when it comes to that, like that plan of attack, that thought or whatever, I think I've mentioned to you a guy that worked in the kind of athlete relations department there at SMU, Steve Stegall, one of my buddies. He's one of the few guys to ever come from my high school along with me and go play at a D1 school. He played for UT when they won a national championship, whatever year that was. I don't keep up with him that well, but Steve was on special teams.
06, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, great dude, great person, Steve Stegall. And so, like, when I'd go into his office to just kind of chat, which didn't happen all the time, I didn't really like spending a lot of time around the athletic facilities when I didn't have to be there, which is very rare. But anyway, I can remember going and talking to him, and he would like he would just ask me questions about what's going on, and by the time I finished, he had another question. And like by the time I got done, I'm like, Steve, I needed to ask you a question. Like, can you just it was so much.
He's a good counselor, man.
Yeah, but at the same time, like that's something. There's a lot of, and I won't go into this right now, but there's that quality is something that I think is also something we're kind of called to do, like be interested in somebody else's life and
care about people.
Yeah. And I think that it was truly that way. This was not because I know Steve, I know his heart. And so, anyway, that's one way to go about this whole thing is like, you got to get in the box where you think about, that dude just smoked that water bottle.
Dang, it's a big.
So, but you got to think about this person, and like you said, figure out what they're passionate about, and then start asking them questions, and that makes conversation so much easier. And for me, like I kind of learned that from Steve, but also, playing in a band, I didn't know any hunters when I played in a band.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody that plays music hunts really, hardly at all, even in country music, or whatever. So, finding those people were few and far between. And so most of the time I'm just talking about music or something else that, is going on. And you just got to kind of find what those people are passionate about. And, honestly, like I was always trying not to talk about me the whole time, Mm-hmm. I think that's one way to go about it for sure, man.
Learning how to formulate questions is kind of a big deal. And I think podcasting has taught me that more than anything, because I can remember, and I still do this from time to time, but when we first started the podcast, I would just make a statement expecting the person to continue on. And sometimes you get crickets and you're like, I need to find a way to make that a question and not just talk. Because, quite honestly, it's a human skill to be able to have conversation and not have to be asking each other questions the whole time. Mm. But sometimes you have to be the one who continue the conversation. And that's kind of our job as hosts of the podcast, right? To make sure that it keeps going. And that's kind of what you can do at family gatherings is make sure it keeps going. We were sitting in Bozeman this past summer, and this one kind of quirky girl, she said, in most social situations with people who don't know each other very well, there's like an awkward silence every 7 minutes. And after that, we all would think about it when it would happen.
It would happen every 7 minutes. Yeah.
It's like, this is for real.
Yeah.
Like, this is a thing,
Yeah.
And that's even the same like in families. Like with my wife, we don't really have that because we see each other all the time. But like people that I'm going to see, next week that I only see 2 or 3 times a year, sometimes it's hard to keep that going.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I guess, the gist of what we're talking about is keeping the conversation going. But
that's when you go, hey, you want a Diet Coke? And you start walking to the kitchen.
Yeah, hey, you want some mashed potatoes? I'm going in there. Yeah. But I think that, part of what I wanted to talk about today, too, was like not only just how to conversate with normal people, but like have hunting, at least find a way to still talk about what you like to talk about, but on a level that they want to talk about it, too. Mm-hmm. And so I think that talking about family and how much family means to you, especially at this time of year, is a good thing to do, and maybe you're speaking to someone who's new to the family or someone who, y'all don't hang out as much, but if you can find a way to incorporate like an outdoor activity and convey like how much, for instance, for me, I like to tell stories of the Dearleys from when I was a kid. It's fun. Those are good memories, But my little cousins, we don't really get to have that experience with them anymore just because pretty much lease prices have gone through the roof. But still talking about how much fun that was and like how much fun you can have as a family in the outdoors kind of gets people's wheels to turning. And I don't know, it might end up where, used to you as a family, y'all'd go and, play dominoes or something, which is fun. I still do that, or go outside and play pickup football or something. Maybe one of these days everybody brings their shotguns and shoots skeet, or, you do something else fun outdoors as a family, and that turns into, hey, let's actually go see if there's any squirrels in that little strip of timber right over there,
right,
or whatever it might be. Conversations like that and conveying to people that hunting isn't a selfish thing. It can be if you do it wrong, but it can also be a great tool to spend time together as a family when otherwise you might just be sitting on the couch looking at each other.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure, man. I guess one thing that I struggle with. Well, I don't know if this is a struggle or not. I don't feel like it is necessarily, but when it comes to like carrying conversation, I do struggle with this. Is that I don't like small talk.
Yeah.
And so
me neither, man.
like rather than just be like, I can do it and I'll do it a little bit, but rather than let's talk about, all this, weather and
just
everything.
Been working, right?
Yeah, just been working kind of thing. Like rather than do that, I would rather like when I say, hey, how's everything going? I want you to tell me if it's not going good. Like I want to hear from you about it. Like I don't just mean like, oh, pretty good,
Yeah.
Which I say that all the time too. But like I've got a couple of buddies, one in particular from high school that like I was talking about the other day that, and I don't see him. I'll not see him for a year or more at a time. We won't hear from each other for a year. And then we'll get together and we'll talk about some of the deepest stuff you could imagine. Like the other night, we stayed up till 4 a.m. talking after my buddy's wedding about like some deep stuff. It was me, him, my wife, and another buddy. And we talked about some stuff that every time somebody said something, you had to think hard about it, dude. Like you had to figure out what they were trying to get to.
Yeah.
And it was good conversation, man. And so like, I started to recognize that like there's very few people like that, and that I appreciate those people that can get deep with you and talk about stuff, issues or things that are going well for you. Got promoted, and then my next question was like, well, man, why'd that happen? That's pretty cool, whatever. But if it's small talk, I struggle with that, and I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about deep talk, deep thinking, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, like as far as like smaller talk goes, some of the things you could, I guess, do to kind of, and I don't necessarily do this that well, but a few of them I do. I mean, these ideas that I have, but like showing respect to animals, to your family members. So like in your case, if you're out there playing football in the yard, and all of a sudden you're like a birder, so you know them all. So like, because of your respect, you've learned them. And so like when you get out there, you throw a football around and you catch this football that's thrown high in the air, and all of a sudden, like while you were trying to catch it, you looked up and there was a yellow-bellied sapsucker up there, like you point out to your cousin, hey, look at that. You know what that is? Listen to its call, whatever.
You know what's cool is I can't catch, but besides that, I'm better than I used to be, but my nickname in high school.
You can catch a 2x4 really well.
Yeah. I used to be called Casey Can't Catch in middle school because I was a tight end and I was a blocking tight end. But no, it's neat because I am the animal call guy in my family. Like the kids want me to like, make the elk noise a lot or whatever.
Jet wanted you to do a zebra call.
Yeah, your son wanted me to do a zebra the other day. I was like, oh, okay. Let's work on this. And then we watched a YouTube video, and I said, dude, I can't do that.
Ain't happening.
No way. But yeah, that's a great way to like convey, how you feel about the outdoors is just like show people like interesting things, like you said, respect to animals, that kind of thing. Another way that I've tried that worked really good the other day at my family Christmas was I brought a wild game dish that was a little bit different than like your standard thing. Everybody will eat some chicken fried backstrap, right? Not really think that much about it, or some deer poppers, but I brought some elk meatballs in like a olive oil kind of Italian-y sauce.
This is something you do well and you've done before. Key.
Yes.
Don't do something new.
Yes, don't try something new. Yeah,
yes.
yeah, good point. But that's something that like I've kind of been perfecting over the last year, and I think they're pretty good. So I brought those. Everybody liked them, loved them, and it's like kind of starts opening people's thoughts to, I can literally provide my family food by hunting and doing this. It's not just, I grew up where like deer steak was a novelty. Even though we hunted, like, oh, we're going to go eat some deer backstrap tonight. And I got some jerky, which are all there. It's tasty. But like, it wasn't like an everyday thing.
Right.
But whenever you start portraying it and like presenting it in a everyday meal sense, people start thinking like, hey, this is kind of neat, you know, and then that leads to more conversation.
Yeah. You know, what's funny is like there's some guys, man, that a lot of people that we know look up to that are like, man, I hadn't bought any meat from the supermarket in 10 years or whatever. That's not really like life for most people, right? That's hard to do. You still have to make money to survive, even though all your food's coming off the land, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Like you still have other expenses. So most people have to work. And so eating wild game tends to be a novelty sometimes because it's so hard to get sometimes. And I think it's a little out of touch to think that, you know, there's many people out there that can just sit there and provide all their meals. I mean, for one, we don't have any, like the biggest game animal we have out here is a deer, right?
Or pig, if you want to call.
It's not a game animal, but yeah, but something you could shoot, I guess, would be a better way to say it for me. And so a pig, you know, would be big. Well, you know, depending on that, and to be honest with you, most of the pigs around here are probably way about the same as the deer.
Yeah, about 150.
Yeah, there's just
nobody wants to eat a big old 300-pound boar anyways.
Right,
you know,
and so you know, like a guy up in, you know, Idaho or whatever that shoots a big elk or a moose or whatever, you know, every year, or Montana or whatever. I mean, they just live in a different world than us. And you can eat that moose all year, or that elk all year, but you can't do that with a whitetail.
I've been thinking about this, and this is drifting off of our conversation a little bit, but people talk about like small game and like how much fun it is, and it is a ton of fun to go hunt squirrels or rabbits or whatever. But that's really not a way to provide for your family. The calories that you use up trying to shoot 3 or 4 squirrels is going to be more than what those 3 or 4 squirrels provide. And think about like if, like you'd have to be a legit, like your job is as the husband is to bring home the meat if you wanted a small game hunt and feed your family off of it. So it's more of like what we were talking about earlier, where that's kind of a fun practice to do maybe as a family. Go out and do it and make it kind of a novelty and kind of cool that you're eating squirrels or whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think you're right there. And I don't know. I was, you know, I think that you're onto something there though with bringing a dish. And I think one thing you can't go wrong with is some kind of ground meat, which you did the meatballs. I mean, you could put Velveeta and Rotel together with it and make, you know, a good chip dip, right?
Yeah. Well, I always want it to be like familiar, but at least identifiable that it is meat. You know, like what you're talking about there is like maybe a step you take before. We tell people, "Did you know, was that good?" Like, well, that was elk, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't want to hide it too much.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's what you're saying. Like, you can always put it in a chip dip, but
I mean, so for instance, we've got a meat locker up here that does these big long summer sausages with jalapeno cheese in them, and they are so good. Like they're the best summer sausage I've ever had, and it's done out of deer, and I'm sure they add pork and stuff to it, but it's good. And that's something you can do. That's just straight meat. It's not, you can't hide it. Put it on a cracker. You know, it's got cheese and jalapeno in it already, and just be like, look, I promise you will like this. Take one bite, and you'll make me happy.
That's right.
And people will try it most of the time, I think.
So speaking of happiness, or being happy, let's talk about happiness. One thing that everybody can talk about is what makes you happy. And I feel like the happiness of other individuals is something that we should concentrate on more, like just as humans, man. And like, it's okay to try to make somebody else feel happy. And it's a good thing to discuss. Like, if you don't know for a fact what makes someone happy, how do you know, like, what to get them for Christmas or whatever? You know, those are good talks to have. And, you know, if you can talk about what makes you happy, then you might even be able to get into some deeper conversations where you talk about what makes you sad and, like, grow together as a family. And in that, it's another way to convey to people how much hunting means to you, because it's part of what makes you happy.
Yeah, it makes me sad when I don't kill a deer.
That's right. Hunting makes me happy and sad.
That's right. No, but like, it sounds weird, and if you're not that close, or maybe you're too close in a family instance sometimes to kind of ask a question like that, I think a good way to approach it would be like, just to be like, hey, what's been going on? Oh, not a lot, just work. And then you do this kind of thing where it's kind of like poking a little fun. You're just like, all you've been doing is working. You hadn't done anything fun lately,
Yeah,
you know.
I do
And
that,
then,
yeah.
and oh well, I did go to the casino the other night, you know. And then you find out they have a betting problem, you know, or a gambling problem. But you know, you kind of start to. That's one way to kind of learn like what they've been. Oh, I went fishing the other day, you know, whatever. Oh, that's cool, man. Yeah, what'd you get? A bunch of catfish. I put them all fillets up in my freezer. Well, speaking of that, I like to hunt, and you don't hunt much, you know, kind of thing. You can kind of work into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of feel like we're coming to this whole thing. Like the big message behind this is like be intentional a little bit.
Yeah,
without,
that's a good
like,
point, man.
You know, without being too like proddy, I guess. You know, but I mean, there are like. And there's so many things you can do. Like if somebody does, if you have somebody that's cool in your family and wants to like talk to you about hunting, like I mean, I'm sure you've had this happen before, but like people that don't know much about hunting but love you want to ask you about some kind of different questions about hunting. Well, you can really like brush up on some stuff and like impress them, and that's a way to be like, well, he doesn't just kill things and get blood all over his hand. Like, he knows about Pittman Robertson and what that does. He knows about the Farm Bill. And, you know, definitely, you know, you could look up and be like, all these different things. Tell them, like, this is what's in the Farm Bill. This is why this is important. And maybe, like, if it's your, like, super right-wing uncle, don't mention that, like, food stamps are, you know, $750 billion worth of the Farm Bill or anything. Because then you'll get an earful, you know, if that... Especially if he's one of those Facebook guys, you know, that loves to prod everybody.
And that's
on
another
Facebook.
way to like show how much you care about wildlife, and that it's not all about killing. It's the fact that, you know, I know about all this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, Pittman Robertson, Dingle Johnson, Land and Water Conservation Fund, like these things that are like in the news right now, like that. If you know something about them, maybe you can help people make a more informed decision.
Right.
And on that. There's this certain individual that we all run into around the holidays who usually shares a different political viewpoint
Santa.
than us. Santa. No, but I think a lot of people, especially I've been saying with the X too much like today.
You're getting better, dude.
Especially
getting better.
Once you get married and you're combining families and meeting new people, you're going to run into some people who maybe don't see things the same way you do. They might call you Bambi killer or whatever, you know, and that's not really left or right wing. It's just, you know, maybe they don't have an understanding of hunting. But I think it's really important around the holidays and just in life in general, in those conversations, to not be confrontational.
Absolutely.
About things,
I had
man.
that written as a note here, side note.
So whenever you like are running into this stuff during the holidays, like, don't be confrontational. I wrote down, like, do your best and start asking questions and get to the bottom of why they feel the way they do. Because once you understand someone, you don't have to agree, but just understand exactly what their stance on this is, then maybe you can kind of understand how to do your best to maybe not change their mind, but at least like make them not so radical about how they feel about this.
Or just to like understand why you do it. You know what I mean? And not be like, like you said, there's some people that are just radical, right?
Yeah.
And then there's some that you're going to come across that, and I think you have to be empathetic of this and know that like some people just aren't okay killing something, you know? And if that's the case, like
they don't have to.
You don't have to change your mind.
Yeah.
Just you know, you can tell them why you do it, and it doesn't have to be something that's like, you know, if they're not changing their mind, going to frustrate you and make you confrontational, you know, or whatever, like you said. And I think, like, I've got a grandmother that is an animal lover and would never kill anything, you know, but she loves me, and she knows that I hunt. My dad hunts, and she wouldn't ever do that. But she's not like necessarily against it, you know. But like, I think one thing that I try to do with her or with anybody, I mean, I like this stuff, so it's not just like I'm intentionally doing this to kind of like make them think that my way is okay or right or whatever. But I take a lot of pictures and a lot of video of wildlife, right? I have some cool stuff, I feel like, kind of stockpiled on my hard drives and stuff, and I will show them like, hey, check out this picture I took the other day of this deer, eating this, blackberry off this vine or whatever it may be. Look at this bear that I took a video of in British Columbia last year or whatever. And I show stuff like that to her or to my mom who, like same way would never kill anything, and doesn't love that my dad and I do it, but she understands it, 100%.
She can't even, you've told me this, but she doesn't say kill any deer. She does the catching deers thing,
it's
right?
the catching deers thing, yeah. Did y'all catch anything? Well, we didn't go fishing, so, and we didn't have a net gun. So I think that's like one way, if you have pictures of deer, just be like, or a bird or whatever, just show people
whatever
like,
you appreciate about the outdoors, like sometimes it's a landscape shot. And that's one of the greatest things to convey, like someone, like especially if you're, like my family has a hard time, my married into family, I wouldn't say hard time, but they just haven't gone out and explored the world as much as I have. So they have a hard time understanding like why I have such a drive to do that sometimes, because they love their hometown. They love where they grew up. They love being here, and that's fine. But when I can show them things like our Black Canyon trip, rock trolls and stuff, like they get it.
Yeah, there's a
because
reason.
This is why I like to do that. And then they'll be like, I would never do that because I'm scared. But
but that looks cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important, showing people why spending time in the outdoors is important to you. And I think that's kind of like a good way to kind of get into, why it's important to me. Like personally, I like to spend time sitting in the stand sometimes, like as the sun's setting, just because I can appreciate this beautiful canvas that God's painted for me. And all the birds that are doing their songs and stuff, and that surround me that time of day, and the deer start moving, and it just, man, like the creation is just one of the biggest things for me, right? Like I love the act. I love when we're charging up a hill, like after a deer that's moving away from us with a decoy, and there's nothing in between us but grass, and then that's cool.
Yeah.
Like that's active. That is getting after it. But I also like the whole passive sitting here and looking at what has been created, I think that's cool.
I like being enveloped. I like completely being able to erase my mind from anything like the outside distractions of the world. Like that's why I like elk hunting so much, man. And then when we go like out of state on deer hunts, it's that way too. Like for those couple days, I can truly let go of that stuff. And specifically when you go to the mountains and you don't have cell phone service, like it's you, the spruce trees, and the bugling elk.
Yeah.
Like that is a cool feeling, man. And my job for the next 6 days is to give all of my effort to find one of these things and bring it back home.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And that's one reason I used to love music so much or touring, because for 45 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, you were on stage and you just thought about nothing else but like the three guys you were with and the notes you were putting together and everything, and the crowd that's feeding energy into you. And that was it. No problems. Like, we got here, it doesn't matter how much we spent to get here, how little we have to go to the next place on, and so I totally get that. But kind of on the other hand, this doesn't happen often, but sometimes, like, I feel like that sitting in a deer stand, especially something that's not super active and involved, sitting in a deer stand, waiting on a deer to come within bow range of you, gives you the ability to really think about things that are going on that may be a problem or something that's an issue or something that hurts, and figure it out. Or, so for instance, we were out in West Texas one time, and it was me and a buddy and my dad and a couple other guys in camp that were my dad's friends. And my dad comes in the early afternoon, like 1 p.m., and like he looks like something's wrong. And he comes up and pulls me and my buddy into the back room, and he goes, "Hey, so-and-so, one of my good friends, his brother had gotten into a wreck, and had died. He was the only one that was even hurt in the whole vehicle. Nobody else was hurt. 18-wheeler hit him. They were in a car, had his seatbelt on, doing nothing wrong, and just killed him. He was out in California, part of the Air Force, and got killed, just hit by an 18-wheeler on his side, I guess. And, I mean, right then, like, we're in the middle of a hunt, and I find out that my best friend's older brother, who I also grew up and spent a lot of time with, he's dead, you know. And, dude, I just started bawling, man. I couldn't handle it, and I didn't know what to do, and we just sat there forever in that back room of that deer camp. And finally, my dad suggested that we go out, you know, still go out and hunt. So I did. I went out and I sat in the stand that night. I don't even remember if I saw a deer. It wasn't action-packed, I don't think, at all. But I got to sit there and just pray, man, and just cry in that deer stand by myself. And just by the end of it, I was still very sad, you know, and I had to go home and face all this and face my friend and the funeral service and everything, you know. But I also had kind of a weird peace about it after sitting there for 3 hours and praying about it and thinking about it and everything too, you know. So, like, I guess the therapy and sitting in a deer stand is something that is big for me sometimes when you have that opportunity, you know. I think that, you know, ending kind of here with this spiritual talk like I have the last couple of thoughts, you know, it kind of comes full circle back to, like, the meaning of Christmas, right? I mean, for us, for you and I, basically the reason Christmas is a holiday is because at some point enough people believed that Jesus Christ was the Savior that they created a holiday, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that this has kind of been my message to the youth group as of late, is that the Christmas story isn't about a little baby in a manger. The full Christmas story is the whole life of Christ, and the fact that God came to earth, took a humanly form, dealt with all the same struggles that we do on a daily basis, all the same temptations, but overcame that, lived a sinless life, and then died
and rose again.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's the full story, you know, and man, we believe that wholeheartedly.
Sure.
You know, and if it's something you believe too, when you're talking to people at Christmas, first of all, talk to them about that, because this creation that God gave us, it's amazing, it's wonderful, but it will go away one day, you know, and we need to kind of sometimes step back and think about that at times. And the most important thing is like understanding the true meaning of why we gather together as families this time of year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, as humans, we're finite, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I think that may be a reason that hunters don't take killing lightly a lot of times. You know, like, we understand that at some point we are dead too. You know, so it's not something. It's something that hits close to home, I guess you could say. You know, but you know, it's a time. The holidays, or this Christmas holiday, you know, is a time to rest and be thankful that we have the opportunity we've been afforded to live forever, essentially, right?
Yeah.
You know, so anyway, with that, I guess I would just like to say Merry Christmas to everybody.
That's right. Merry Christmas. Be happy about it.
That's right.
Go hang out with your fam and have a good time.
Yeah, for real. And then find a way to hunt at some point after you've stepped out of the box of hunting, or of family. I can't even step out of the hunting box.
You know, it's funny because the stepping out of the family box into the hunting box goes a lot smoother for me. I can get in hunting mode real quick.
Yeah, it takes a lot of focus to go the other way. Yeah, no kidding, man. Well, I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas. Hope you get everything you asked for, and I hope that even if you don't, you remember what we were talking about here. We remember the reason that reason for the season. I hate to say something so cliche, but I'm going to. So anyway, God bless you guys, and remember, this is your element.
Live in it.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live, headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.